We were out of breath, standing at the edge of the bluffs, looking out onto Lake Huron. We were all somewhere around 15, 16, and we'd never done this thing before, this thing that tourists do when they come to our town. You watch one sunset at the bottom, on the stupidly beautiful beach, and then you race up to here, where the trees part just in time to watch another one, hues fading into that burnt, royal purple in the sky, in the lake. God, I hated it. We were laughing with every bit of ourselves because it's hilarious to do something that you think is annoying that other people find so meaningful. It's like an inside joke where you can secretly love both the irony and the genuine beauty of a moment in life all at once. There was something in me that knew I wouldn't be there much longer, that the town was letting me go. I could already feel it's turning its back on me, and that turning, that twisting reminded me of her just then, of Misty Murray, Never Found. I wondered if she ever felt this way, twisted and sentimental, brave and breathless, facing a Huron County sunset. I'm Taylor Graham, and I'm a playwright, and I also work as an educator in theater. So Post Alice takes 4 characters from 4 Alice Munro stories, inspired by them, and they're getting together to kind of reckon with their past, with who they are. The story also focuses on the story of Misty Murray, which is a true story from Huron County in the mid-90s of a young girl who she went missing. And so they're grappling with that too. They're examining ghost stories and looking at what it means to be a lost woman in the world. Those are some of my favorite stories, right? Stories about women, especially really close friends, that you don't get to see in media very often, right? You don't get to see these really complex women with complex relationships with each other. You know, what does it mean to be a woman growing up in rural Ontario? And, you know, how do we reckon with our past and think about who we are today? Well, growing up in Huron County, you know, as somebody, you know, who considers themselves a writer, Alice Munro hangs very, you know, heavy above you. And I was really inspired by those stories. And so using that inspiration and sort of thinking about characters of hers that I loved, I then, you know, told a story that really is entirely my own. Right? It's my story inspired by some of these stories. The reason I did that, because I didn't want to create an adaptation. I wanted to create my version of Huron County, right? The version that I grew up with, the women that I knew from the area that were inspired by some of these stories that Alice Munro put together. You know, if we're going to talk about Canada today, right? And especially if you're dealing with somebody as emblematic of Canada as Alice Munro is in some ways, you need to investigate, you know, how they're not only representing one side of the nation, what it means to be maybe a rural Canadian, but maybe who they're leaving out, right? So I have a lot of love and respect for Alice Munro, obviously, but there's also questions of colonialism in some of her work, right? And so how do you address that? How do you think about settlers in Canada? So it felt really important to me to ask those questions. I was kind of surprised by the critical reception of the piece, and I'm so glad that so many people connected to the ideas and themes that we were putting in that piece. I've only met Alice Munro once, and it was a really funny moment. I was in Bayfield, Ontario, walking on the streets there, and Alice Munro was coming out of a shop, and I saw my friend, and my friend introduced me as a writer, and I'll never forget it. Alice Munro kind of laughed at me and said, "Well, good luck with that," which I thought was wonderful.